Good morning and welcome to our weekly Tourismus Namibia show, which we bring each week now. My name is Frank Steffen. I'm the editor of Allgemeine Zeitung, obviously also writing for Tourismus Namibia. And with me in the studio is Chloe Deer, who you would know writes for the magazine too. Welcome, Chloe.
Thank you, Frank.
Yeah, we've got quite a full program today, so we won't concentrate too much on the various items because we've got an interview lined up with the Minister of Environment, Forestry and Tourism. But let's first just cross over for our topics for the day. Yeah, some good news this week. I think we all read about it. It is really good news. The Ministry of Tourism is seriously looking at how to open up the tourism industry again. They are looking at air bridges, similar to what we all saw on the news for Spain and Italy and so on. And when I spoke to the minister, he actually said the idea is to allow people who are healthy to come over into our country. They obviously need some form of pre-clearance and whatever. And then at the end of the day, when they come here, they don't need a 14-day quarantine. Because I think that's the biggest obstacle in trying to get tourism going again, because nobody will go and leave for 4 weeks and spend 2 weeks in quarantine, return home and enter for another 2 weeks of quarantine. So it is a bit of a problem. So let's hope they find a solution to it, because I think it's easier said than done at the end of the day. So, but let's see what happens there. Then if you look into Republican of Friday edition, you will see that there's a bit of good news in terms of Namibia not having lost as many elephants to poaching as in the past. That I found quite interesting.
Because of COVID?
No, generally for the past year.
Oh, the year.
Yeah. So they gave an update of the report of elephant poaching in Africa, and Namibia in that context only lost 2 last year, which I think is very good.
Yeah, that is good.
And then finally, just a little reminder that in another 10 days' time, we will for the first time resume publishing our Tourismus Namibia again. We've got a couple of nice issues and themes in there. Chloe obviously approached it a bit different this time. Instead of always just concentrating on Namibia, we bring you a bit of an idea of what it is like if you were to approach Namibia as you come from the Cape. So welcome news there. So in another 10 days' time, you can read all about it. And that's already what I wanted to tell you in topics. Next thing, we've got destinations. Yeah, destinations is where you come in.
Yeah, I think this week actually the first topic won't really be destinations, but it's more just to invite you to come onto our Instagram platform and have a look at what we share there, because a lot of what we speak about and a lot of the images that I post and things like that are not only my own, but also of locals who travel the country and actually know the country better than anybody else, you know. And so we love to feature your stories and to share tips and tricks and insights, and a lot of the stuff isn't really what we share in our magazine or even in these live broadcasts, because I mean obviously we take so many photographs, but also just to invite you, if you're interested, to get involved in our broadcast, because we actually would love to be able to interview and share your stories almost like we are around a fire just chatting about your experiences or things like that. And so so just pop us an email or DM us on our Instagram, and we'd really love for you to get involved, because I don't know, there's just so much. There is the platform Local Tourism is Lacquer, and we share a lot of the discounts and specials that they have at the moment, which really I think we should be taking advantage of. And so just, you know, if you have any more that you'd like us to include, this is a collaboration at the end of the day. I mean, we all love Namibia as much as one another, and just to celebrate the beauty of Namibia and, you know, share the deals and share some of the best experiences I've had, I've got from private messages from you, like giving me secret campsites here and there, which I think is really the charm of travel, really. So
and this is really where we're going in the future anyway. I mean, Chloe knows it. We're busy looking at how we can revamp our internet site as well. So the idea is eventually to have you land on a map, even if you want to, and then you can actually have a look at the routes that we've previously traveled, number one, and number two, always we'll try and give you some ideas of where you can stay, whether it's camping or whether it's glamping is the big thing these days and whatever. So whether it's accommodation or camping, that doesn't matter. You've got the choice, because at the end of the day, our idea is to promote tourism as a whole. So we don't have a specific mission to just promote the one above the other. So
and even once COVID is over, we don't want locals to ever feel as though, you know, their opportunities to travel are only now that there's specials on. You know,
exactly.
There are so many special parts of Namibia that, you know, that are available all year round. So follow us on Instagram. That would be, we'll leave a link in the description. So
and send us photos. Like we always said, we always have our picture of the week, and you're welcome to send us a nice photo, and we can put it in here as part of the show. Yeah, and then you wanted to tell us about Jackalberry.
Yes, another very interesting camp, actually. It's a tented camp in the Mamili National Park, which is just on the backwaters of the Linyanti. And the main section of the camp is actually built in and around a large jackalberry tree. And sorry about the jumpy footage, but just to get to and from, you know, you're driving through muddy puddles, but the bird life there is really unbelievable. Yeah. And actually the elephant as well, because obviously that's their pathway to and from Botswana. So they the elephant sightings are incredible, and there you can see it's really beautifully,
really nicely done.
Yeah, it's really beautiful, and you really get the sense that you are immersed in nature, which I mean is all part of the experience.
You clearly had a visitor there.
Yes, no, but I must say one of the best spots I've been to for bird sighting. They offer a very beautiful sunrise bird viewing trip. But even the way that they've built the camp, it's kind of very much using the organic materials around, and really clever use of things like plastic pipes for lighting, which you'll see just now. I don't know, I just find it very unique and very, but it's a tented camp, and I mean, it's lesser traveled than Mamili National Park, so you really do feel, you don't see other cars, you know. There you can see those lights are actually made from plastic pipes, which they've decorated, and you see a lot of Namibian jewelry made out of the pipes, but I just thought it was beautiful how So yeah, and you have just these, I mean, during the rain season, this would all be flooded with water.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, this is like you won't easily see this again in the foreseeable future, not if the rain continues the way it was this season.
Oh, that's true, true. But I mean, it's another highlight, I would say.
Absolutely, whether there's water or dry, it is always beautiful. Yeah.
And we were constantly surrounded by elephants, so, you know, animals, you know, actually you probably see more of them when it isn't rain season, because they come to the spots that there are water. Yes, and then another kind of unique experience, Nambwa, they don't do it all the time, but they often, for those of you who are interested in yoga and kind of...
That's me typically.
Yeah, I thought so. I mean, I can just imagine Frank sitting there, but it was such a special experience because the monkeys were all in the trees around us, almost copying our movements. I mean, I was an observer, just like the monkeys, but you can see that they were just looking down on us. Like, it was such a special experience, but very peaceful because it's right on the water's edge as well. But what Namba is quite good at doing is having dedicated trips specifically for yoga enthusiasts. And so this, for example, is what they would do if you book to do a yoga session in your room. But they actually do take you out into the bush and do it inside the grass and things when they do groups specifically dedicated to yoga. But it's just, you know, it's when you're surrounded by nature. I think I found that move quite exciting. But I think they were eyeing the tray of food there more than anything else, if I'm honest. But No, very special. And so just keep an eye out. I think Nambwa are quite good at posting about when they have these yoga retreats and things like that. But it's when you are surrounded by so much beauty, and they are the only lodge, African monarch lodges inside the Bubwata.
Yeah.
So you really are completely on your own, you know, with the elephant pathways all around you.
I think that's the big thing about Zambezi region. No matter where you go there, you far off the beaten track quite fast. You know, you've got the main route going through that area, but that's where it stops then.
Especially actually in the Bubwata, because there aren't lodges or campsites everywhere around you. You know, they're only two, very private, and even it gives you the chance to see more animals and wildlife because they aren't interrupted by constant cars, like at Etosha, for example, with that constant movement of vehicles.
Yeah.
So,
and that's what we're also trying to promote in our next edition. Is there's so many places, and I actually spoke to the Minister of Tourism about it as well. I, for example, since I've been up in Novemberland and looked at what they've got to offer, I fell in love with that place for the simple reason I'm much into wild camping and just doing as I please. Today, if I see a nice spot, I want to remain there. And there are still many places like that in Namibia where you can actually enjoy that. Kaokoland is also one of those areas where you're off and away and nobody starts interfering. Best thing is just switch your cell phone off and
you actually don't even need the ablution facilities. I mean, all you need is your braai and then just dig a hole. I mean, seriously, that's the best way to experience Africa. So we'll be bringing some of those trips to you as well. But I think that's all we have.
That's all 4 destinations today. And now I hope you've brought along a bit of patience because it's quite a lengthy interview, but still I think it's also a good interview to have had, simply to get the view of the Minister of Environment, Forestry and Tourism. So up next we've got To the Point. Good afternoon, Honourable Minister. As you can see, viewers, we've got an interview scheduled with the Honourable Minister for Environment, Forestry and Tourism, Honourable Pohamba Shifeta. Thank you for having us. Thank you for making the time for us. We are obviously not here to have hard and fast interviews. This is about Tourismus Namibia, our special show where we try and promote our Namibian tourism sector, which is obviously in turmoil at the moment. Minister, maybe you want to comment on that, on what is waiting for us in terms of budget and what you've got planned?
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for having me here. Our plan, of course, given that we have to use the resources we have, the little resources we have, but we want to complete major projects, and we can do that. Because our plan has been that we have to be prudent with our financial resources and all our resources in order to make sure that we go a mile, we accomplish major activities. So we have to look at the first and foremost the mandate of our ministry, the Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Tourism has got a mandate. That mandate is derived from our Constitution, Article 95L, and that is to look at our ecosystem, to maintain and protect our ecosystem, and also the essential ecological processes and our biodiversity. And by so doing, we have to look at not only protect and put that in the hands of the Namibian people. That's why we have created community conservancies, community forests, and we make sure that the private sector plays a major role there. And while they are protecting this biodiversity, they have to also sustainably derive benefit from that, and that works much because that's why you see so many Namibians very passionate about conservation, passionate about protecting of our biodiversity. It's because they are deriving benefit from that, and that is what we want to continue with, and make sure that there is also fair and equitable benefit sharing. We have enacted a law, we call it Access and Benefit Sharing Act, which we now want to make sure that whatever we have, whatever natural resources we have, our communities must use that, and no one comes from there can patent those natural resources, and that law talks to that. It talks to that so that there should be some kind of benefit sharing. If you come with technology, the natural resources that owned by the communities, and those communities will be able to sign a contract with you that they must have a benefit sharing, equitable benefit sharing, and that benefit sharing must be fair and equitable. So if, for instance, you come and you want to harvest diverse crops, as we do now, export diverse crops into some of the conservancies, or you come, you want ngaras, you want to harvest them or use them for pharmaceutical products, whatever you do, Hudia or whatever. So we are now going to make sure that our communities have benefited equitably from those products, and we are ready to implement that this year. We already working we have finalized the regulations already, so we are going to put that into force, that law into force. The other part is to make sure that we continue with our activities on protection of our wildlife, to prevent illegal hunting of our iconic species like rhino, elephants, and all other species we have, our games, so that they cannot be illegally hunted. And also we make sure that we put major surveillance on our parks, to ensure that they also maintained those facilities in our parks, and also to ensure that communities, we minimize the human wildlife conflict in our communities. We know that the population of wildlife is growing every year, and because of that, and also given that also the population, human population is also growing, not only the wildlife population but also equally the human population, and also encroachment in those habitats of the wildlife, causing now conflict. And because of competition over resources, natural resources like water, grazing, and so on, so it becomes it has become a problem now. That's why we have more conflict between wildlife and the human. So, but we have a plan for that, and we make sure that we provide some water infrastructure, and also we prevent water infrastructure or property of our communities not to be destroyed. So, in order to prevent this conflict further. So on tourism, we are also working on other major programs. We have, as you might recall, that I have announced that we are now looking at, because of this COVID-19, everything shut down, especially when it comes to tourism industry. Next month, we have already started with that plan now to look at a system what we call air bridges. So that means we are going to enter into negotiation with certain countries, selected source countries, where we have a major, we become those that have a major market,
like Germany, America,
and also they must have also some similar protocols and similar health measures in place, so that we can open our borders and allow these tourists to come, because tourism can only survive if they are tourists. So both regional, international and domestic tourists, we need to revive now. This is the time to start reviving our tourism industry. So that.
Sorry, Minister, do I understand this correctly? So this is pretty much the sort of tendency that you are seeing in Europe at the moment, where they say they will have dedicated areas which are cleared for COVID, and in other words, if we know that they're cleared on their side, we're cleared on our side. Those are the sort of air bridges you talk about.
Yes, that's exactly what we are talking about, and we target those countries, and we agree, we negotiate as to what happened, what measures are we going to take in this process. Because we want to make sure that things are done correctly and the safety net is put there in place.
And in that way, we would circumvent the sort of 14-day quarantine period. Am I correct?
Yes. We have to do that. We have to look at all these things. What are the quarantines done that side, where from the destination or from the departing point. So we have to look at that. These are negotiations now. We have to end up with countries, but the safety part must be a priority. Yeah, we look at the economic
that's the project that the President spoke about now?
Yes.
Okay,
that's
starting as from 15 August, you would start...
Yeah, we want to start doing those things because we have to revive the economy, especially the tourism industry that employs more than 100,000 people. We have already lost many people that they lost their jobs. So we can't, and we cannot blame the industry because they have no money, they have no income at all. So especially those who had no reserves. Those who had reserves, they try to do here and there, and they see whether some of them, of course, they cut the salaries half, but some who had no reserve, that means you have to pay many things as well, not only salaries, but you have to pay others as well. You have to pay some allowances, some packages.
Just asking on that score, Minister, is it so that, especially with the conservancies, they're obviously bleeding out at the moment as well, and that will over time obviously leave them with no choice but to start hunting, really, if we're honest about it. We've seen it in Central Africa now. So what plans does the ministry have in place to try and help the conservancies through this time until the tourismus industry has picked up again?
Yeah, with conservancies, we have a plan. Last month, if you might recall, that I announced that we put up a fund, a recovery fund, to make sure that we arrange something for them, because we have 86 conservancies, and in these 86 conservancies, we have more than 5,000 employees. And these are the employees, most of them are game guards and some others working in those lodges and so on. So if we have to let them go and they do not have salaries, that means they will be demoralized. So and then poaching will escalate. So we have to prevent that. So we have now, so far, we have more than 22 million that we have collected.
Wow.
And definitely we gave them assurance that their salaries will be paid. We will pay their salaries until the time we get to that point of revival. We have already signed up with more than 8. That means only 6 that are left without signing a contract in terms of paying salaries, providing allowance, something for the employees.
That's mainly in the north now, I would say.
Yeah, all over the country,
okay, so
all over the country.
No, I was just wondering because they seem to be more pronounced in the north.
No, all over the country, because this we look at their income, their previous income, and also the employment capacity, and we look at what those staff employees were getting, and there are some that you really have to make sure that, especially those who have got iconic species in their conservancies, so we need to make sure that those game cards, we have them there. There's no way that we allow those game cards to go. So they have to be
they're highly trained by now.
Yeah, they have to be there. So, and that is one, and also we are now working on amending our Forestry Act. So we amend our Forestry Act and regulation. When we started already doing that, to strengthen measures in the Forest Act to make sure that the loopholes are completely closed. There are some lacunae we have identified in that, and that's why you have seen people doing ABs. Some of them even just stealing this log timbers, cutting illegally, and just exporting.
So is the idea there similar to the conservancies where you said it must be an equitable solution?
Yes.
So it's not a matter of forbidding that foreigners necessarily invest, but it is prerequisite that they actually support the local community and make it a sustainable effort.
First and foremost, our decision of this ministry is that we will not allow any export of any timber, unprocessed or semi-processed.
Oh, okay.
So that's one. We have already taken that decision now because it's already provided for in the regulation.
Yeah.
That the regulation number 12 does not allow Namibia to export timber unprocessed or semi-processed. That means you need to have product already finished in order to export, because that also, because it anchored on the scarcity of our, and also our forest that we have. Namibia is a very arid country, first of all, and our forest, most of part of Namibia is desert, so we cannot afford to export, because if you export you don't add the value. So what we are doing now is that we will revive all those who want to have those factories revived for timber. We will be able to sustainably allow them to harvest, and we're also going to make sure that we revive those nurseries and community nurseries, so that we can plant trees.
Plenty, I think.
We can plant trees, and the forest, community forest, will then do some of the work to ensure that and the community forest, that's how they will be able to sustain themselves. We have to make sure that every community forest, they have got factories to process those timbers, to make tables, to make chairs for schools. So we don't need to import in the future. We don't need to import any of this. We can do that. We have forests, and our forests can first look at our needs, and also to make sure that we add value, and also we create jobs for our people.
Yeah, and still maintain what we've got as a
we have those that are coming from VTCs in this country, from technical schools, and they have carpentry. They have carpentry skills to do carpentry work. So those are the people that now we want to engage and provide them with these logs sustainably, and then they can provide supply these two products to schools and to other public institutions and the private institutions.
But returning towards the tourism angle, I last year took some time, and we actually dedicated a whole issue of Tourismus Namibia to what we termed the O regions, the 4 O regions. And what I discovered is, obviously we keep on writing about Koukerveld, and we keep on writing about Kavango and Zambezi and Harap and Karas and all these tourism spots. But what struck me is I took a wild chance, sometimes camped wildly, but I systematically combed through the whole of the Ovamboland region. And what I discovered is that, and I've been sort of pressing on that point for some time now, is people tend to go to Kenya to see the Maasai. But why go to Kenya if we've got own people here who are different as well, and who've got their own cultures and something to offer too? So is the ministry over time also embarking on sort of developing the tourismus angle for those regions as well? Because when I was up there, I suddenly felt, but people should come here. It's nice, it's good, and there's much to offer. It's a different thing. It's not necessarily elephants and lions, but there's much to see, and it's a good tourism opportunity. Is the ministry looking towards developing those 4 Oshana and all those, get them embraced into the Namibian system, especially seeing that we've got the Etosha Park right below it?
Yes. No, we have already started doing that, and you might have seen also now the community conservancies there in the north. Some of them are mostly surrounding Etosha on the other side of the north. and also we have some like Congo. We also want to make sure that because when you look at the roads, we developed that road with NTB, Omlunga road, that now traversing from it came from Kunene, then
exactly. That's how I actually took the route
it
from
will have
Congo
to come
right through
Sati, so that that main road that will now be worked out. It's a Capri highway, will link port down to Zambia and Angola, and then up or Zimbabwe and Botswana. We have connected that Omlunga road with that, and that road will now also connect those lodges that were built, community lodges. One is already completed, and 2, 3, 4, 5 of them now completed. We have already Ukwaludi one that was completed some years ago. We have 2 of them completed recently.
Yeah, I also saw one close to Nana.
Yeah, you saw that. We have also one large one that it's a large one that I think in the whole northern part, in the northeast, in the northwest, there is no so far a big lodge like that one. Even private, it is a community lodge that is in the King Nihale, just from the gate. It's a community venture, joint venture with the operator. Okay. So it's owned by the community, but it's operated by Gondwana. So it's big, and with that we'll be able to get tourists to get there, because we want to develop also cultural tourism that has not been really looked at. When people come to Namibia, they don't look at others, only wildlife and some other sceneries, looking at
that's exactly what I'm saying, is because I took all those,
so some dunes, and then look at some of the mountains and in the rivers and so on. But cultural tourism is very important to connect that from Kaokoland, former Kaokoland, and coming to this area where you can now see how the cultures were linked.
Exactly. How
you can link these cultures, because when you look at our Namibian cultures, they are linked. People have been together, we have been battling together, exchanging commodities. That time in the 16th centuries, and they have been doing that. So, and those are the things that we want to see, and we are working with the Ministry of Basic Education, which is responsible for culture. We want to see to it that those cultural villages that are in there, because these are community cultural villages, we want them to get creating those products, so that our tourists, when they come there, they don't just come here from Kunene, they jump, you see cars passing, because there are not really many products they can see there. So we want now to make sure that they can spend some time there in the area.
But Minister, it's an open invitation. Whatever you do, if you have the right people in place, please make use of us. We've got this. We've decided to bring out the tourism broadcast every Saturday morning.
Very good.
And the idea is to exactly make known these things. So please also use the opportunity and make use of us. This is really what it is about. We would love to see the whole country being promoted, and we've done this for a while now.
Yeah, we are ready to do that every week.
Yeah, no, we're happy to I'll speak to Romeo. He's sitting over there.
Put up a program and do that, because we have to promote our industry and also our roads that we have, and the importance of visiting these areas. Some people, they don't see the importance of that, but you learn more when you get to that.
That's the thing. Well, the country is not only
even local people, we need to know this. So we need to take kids there. They see they learn more, even things that they learn at school. They are taught at school. They will have to visualize this, and they make more. They have more understanding.
Minister, on a final note before we part, you obviously now entering your second 5-year term almost as Minister of Tourism and Environment and Tourism. What is it that you love most about this this post that you're filling?
You see, I must say that I just like all of them. You know, I become passionate about conservation, wildlife, and many others, and just the protection of our natural resources and the utilization part, because this is a well-formed ministry that now that forestry has come back. I have to thank the president for having done that. The president has thought so wisely that the forestry has to come back here, because I was saying, I had to make jokes sometimes that, look, you know, putting forestry in agriculture is a bit of paradox, because agriculture will then have to opt whether to destroy the forest in order to plant. We want food, but we want also forest. So now forestry directorate was like an orphan in that, because they have to look at the priorities, whether to protect, and they, mind you, and there you have there are no conservationists there in the agriculture means. Those are people who want to plow the land, and they want to plant. You know, take the forest away and clear the land and the letters. So you don't blame them.
Yeah.
They don't understand really what it is. Now that the forest is here, and I had to thank the president for that. That was decision. That's why we already started a major policy shift, shifting some of these things and making sure that things are done properly in a manner that we conserve our forest, because it's only forest we have. In the areas that we have the little forest, and only, you know, every day we are losing a lot. When you go and see what is happening in those areas that we have a forest, Kabango, Zambezi, and there's a part that we have forest. The northern part, I was told that it was exactly the same. When you fly going to those areas now, you sit down, it's burning everywhere.
Yeah,
people are cutting trees. People are, of course, you don't prevent development. People have to do development, but we have to be wise. We have to make sure that we take rational decisions. Our decisions should be rational, and we shouldn't be blamed by our generations to come. Like we are blaming now our forefathers. And if you look at Central North, it's clean. It was a forest. We were told, you know, we get tales from older people. They will tell you that there used to be lions here, giraffes, elephants. Now what happened? It's clear. You can't even see anything there.
Back, yeah.
So you don't blame people, because development has to take place. There should be development, but development with least damage to environment is welcome. So you have to, when you want to, if you want to have a scrambled egg, you have to, of course, break the egg. But you need to make sure that you don't break the egg and then everything is down.
Slaughter the end.
So now what we need to do, and that's what exactly we are doing now in the areas, the major forest regions, is to protect the forest and make sure that we benefit, those communities benefit sustainably. We sustainably harvest what we have, so that we don't, now that we have now heard what happened in the central northern regions, that the forest was the same as in Kabango, and so now only Ohangwena and the Shikoto part of it has got a forest, but Msati, Oshana, forests are gone, and the only part of Msati on the southern part that you have a bit of forest. So now with that, we need to make sure that it survives. Then we are now encouraging communities to plant more trees, even in areas
to revive that.
Yes, even in the distant areas, we must plant trees. Every community must have that. That's why we need to have nurseries, community forests, and make sure that we have done that. So no, we are there. We are coming there, and with the help and the support of communities, conservation will be a model in Namibia for the whole world. So the world look upon Namibia as a model when it comes to conservation, not only wildlife, but conservation of all our natural resources, including the timber we have in this country.
Yeah.
So when from now onward, and this is now when we had forestry here, our instruction as a top management in this is that no export of timber unprocessed or semi-processed in this country. When you see something going unprocessed or semi-processed to the port, unless they have stolen that, somebody has stolen that, or it is just they are in transit, maybe coming from Angola, Zambia, DRC, using our port. But I must assure the public that there will be no export of semi or unprocessed or semi-processed products of timber here. They will be processed here. So we are now busy putting up some modalities so that our communities and our private sector who want to enter into timber processing, they have that, because we need this product. Don't need to export money to import this product. If we have the natural resources here, we can just use them sustainably.
Yeah.
Especially to satisfy our needs. We don't need to import some timber products or something while we have here some of them here, or even tables or chairs. So we can use ours here.
Well, that brings us to the end of the interview. Thank you very much for making time again, and hopefully we can repeat it sometime down the line.
So he will make up a calendar and then we can do that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that interview. I suppose we all would want him to have a magic wand and just change the whole country in one go. What I especially appreciated about Minister Shifeta was, you might have noticed when you were looking at that video clip, when I asked him what he enjoyed most about his job, and I suddenly saw that gleam in his eyes, and I suddenly realized this is a man who actually believes in what he's doing. So I especially enjoyed that very much. So thank you for viewing. That brings us to the end of our broadcast today. We still have one final little tidbit. That's our picture of the week. And this one was sent to us a while back already, Manfred Laborn. This is clearly down in Namibia. You can see those roads going down that side. And he had some very inquisitive Gemsbuck wondering what he was up to.
Because the mirage as well, the heat rising, it's really beautiful.
Yeah, and this is typical of whether winter or summer, you have these mirages. That's how it works.
You spend your life chasing them when you're on those roads. I mean, you just need that water, especially as we're going into winter.
Yeah. Well, thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me again.
Thank you, Frank.
And we hope you have an enjoyable week next week, and then we see each other in another 7 days' time.